Hey man, yo kakampe. Hey man, yo kakampe.
Hello and welcome back to Conversations in Black. I'm Jordi Kulu, your host. For this new installment of Conversations in Black, we're thrilled and honored to welcome the Honourable Jamie Moses, who's MLA for San Vital and currently serving as the Minister for Economic Development, Investment, Trade, and Natural Resources. So further ado, Minister Moses, welcome to Conversations in Black, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah. So before we delve into the conversation, when we have a politician, the first question we always ask is to know why you chose politics as a form of public service. What prompted you to say like, hey, I want to be involved, I want to run for office, and I want to be a politician?
Well, it's a great question. Yeah, it's a question we get, in this field. Why did we get into this? How did we get into this? So really, it's a real pleasure to answer. And first of all, thanks for reaching out to organizing this podcast, and thanks for the things you're doing to inform folks about people in their community across our country, the work that they're doing. So just thank you for creating space through the form of your podcast and the work that you do. So for myself, I've been elected since 2019. And I've done, first gotten engaged in politics well over a decade ago. I started volunteering with the party back then. And the reason that sparked my interest in it is kind of when it hit my front door. I was working at the Canadian Wheat Board. A conservative federal government came in and kind of changed the nature of that, kind of started in motion the winding down of that organization. For me, that kind of really, hit me of the impact that politicians can have in just everybody's daily life. And so once I was kind of seeing that happen, and of course, I got involved in my own community in my neighborhood of St. Vital, being engaged in, nonprofit boards and community centers, kind of started me on a roadmap of just more engagement. And then I was fortunate enough to get elected in 2019 and be one of the first 3 Black MLAs ever elected in the province of Manitoba.
Yeah, that was really good. As you know, Minister, most of our listeners are trying to get this mostly millennials, like young Canadians in mid 30s, late 20s, and they're trying to get involved into politics, but they're a bit reluctant, particularly saying that, let's say if you haven't had a family member, someone around you who's involved in politics, or if you don't have a name recognition. So if you have any practical tips is for those that want to jump in but are reluctant, it's like, what can be a tip? How can they go about it? Or should they be afraid? Or should they just jump and just hope for the best?
Well, there's a few things I would point to. The first is that you really need to be going into this world of politics for the right reasons, for trying to make your community better, for that interest of, as you said, public service. The job is very demanding, it's taxing, but it requires of you to be doing it for more than just yourself. In my estimation, it's really a job of being able to understand and listen to the community that you're the MLA for, in my case, understanding their needs, understanding what they want and what people are telling you, and trying to, what are their goals in their lives and for the community that you represent. And then taking those voices and being able to transform them and voice them in the legislature and turn them into something tangible that can actually improve their lives and make our communities better. So I think it's really important to be, very intentional and sincere with your motivations for getting into the world of politics. I think the other thing that's very important for anyone to really know who's interested in getting into politics is to really build up that network of people you have around you in your community, in your corner, those people who would be willing to help you, either whether that's through volunteering or fundraising, or even just to tell a neighbor, yes, I know this person, they're genuine, they're a good person, and I would vote for them or I would support them. Those sort of network building is really, really impactful and an important step that folks who are serious about this should do. And then the last thing I'll point to is really just the ability to for folks to really look at what we're doing in terms of the context of their own community and their own neighborhood, and see, am I doing this for the right reasons, and being able to connect with folks in a real and an authentic way. I think those are some of the things that people should think about if they're thinking about getting into politics.
Yeah, thank you for that, Minister. So that's a good actually segue to a first substantive question, is because I said mostly of our viewers, listeners are young Canadians, and given your portfolio, there's now the issue of, I'm pretty sure we're aware of that, of affordability, especially for housing, and also in terms of just accessing for housing or access to property where they feel like maybe they might not, and also, good paying jobs. So since you are the portfolio for actually investment and economic development, so what are the policies of the project that your ministry or your government will be, working towards tackling to address those needs? Because it's really concerning for, many of our, Manitobans in general, but particularly our demographics here and age group of our listeners.
Well, your question is really topical. It's really important. Not only because it's in the media and the news, but because people feel it every day. They see the rising costs when they go to the grocery store, when they fill up with their tanks, or when they're paying for transit, when they're paying for tuition, or trying to afford rent or purchase a home. These are the realities that people are facing in Manitoba, but right across the country. And so, we've been very serious about trying to address these from a much broader perspective. And the perspective that we have on it is, how do we make sure that we, at the same time as we try to stand up new affordable housing units and just increase that supply so people can afford a place to live in Manitoba, but at the same time, how do we tackle the larger issues around homelessness that we're facing in our communities? And how do we make sure that people who are looking for housing and can't find it, and maybe struggle to find it, how do we make sure that we can have places for them, but also to make sure that they're successful in those places to live? And so that's why we've taken a broader approach to this issue as a government. We have a new ministry led by Minister Bernadette Smith called Housing's Addictions and Homelessness, where we can actually try to tackle these things in a coordinated and planned way, where we can look at the address of affordable housing, but also make sure that we have supports for those people who are trying to find housing and who don't have them right now. And so we're trying to take that kind of a coordinated and planned approach to actually address those issues. And I think we're, early days, but we're on the path to making some significant change in Manitoba.
And in terms of that, comes back a lot for just like better or high paying jobs, especially for youth, because they feel like probably maybe if you're not in those niche industry or this big company, let's say MPI, Manitoba Hydro, or in those stuff, that the options that you have is like you're left out, not really good paying jobs, and mostly we see that flight of young Manitobans just flying, going to other provinces. So in terms of your portfolio and your ministry, in terms of that investment, that economic, what are your plans? And, if you can even share, you'll be working on trying to see if we can, what kind to attract more, better paying jobs for young Manitobans.
Oh, that's really important. We have in Manitoba here a need for labor, for skilled labor here in Manitoba. And we want to address that in some significant ways. First, I'll point to, as you said, the need for good paying jobs. We know with the rising costs of living that wages haven't kept up with inflation. And so we want to make sure that when Manitobans are working, that they are earning enough to have the quality of life that we would want to have here in Manitoba. The second thing is that we have a very strict, specific mandate in for my department to create more jobs in the skilled trades. And so for us, we know that Manitoba has one of the most diverse economies in the country, where we have manufacturing, agriculture, tech, and a wide variety. We want to make sure that we can skill up Manitobans, and particularly skill up young Manitobans to meet the job opportunities we have today in Manitoba, but for the future of Manitoba. And so I would encourage people to, look at the landscape that is out here. There are many opportunities in that creative sector, that technology sector. It's growing very much in Manitoba as well. But not to forget about some of these skilled trades. The apprenticeship program in many of the industries is one that is a fantastic tool for young people to get an education while they're working, so they have some money and can address some of those affordability challenges, and over time obtain the full skills they need to be very successful in their trade. And at the same time, it'll allow industries to fill those gaps that they're seeing in the labor market and make sure that people have those good jobs to live a good quality life in Manitoba.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other issue just in the same lane is really for those young ones who are in remote, rural and remote communities, where how would your ministry or government tap into those, young Manitobans also in terms of to skill them up, because they feel like being remote, not around like areas like Winnipeg or even, small, bigger cities where they're a bit hopeless in terms of their economic prospect or even kind of investment. So I don't know if you can touch on that, what specifically can be done to address for those young people who are in remote and rural areas here in Manitoba.
That's a great point. And I think one of the things that we're very ambitious and hopeful about is the new tone that we're trying to take with this government. And that is one of collaboration and working together. We've seen over and I've seen even personally in my own life about, how folks who want to try to accomplish a goal but don't work collaboratively, how they often fail. The saying is, if you want to run fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you got to go together. And that's the approach that we're taking. And so we have a very much of a collaborative and partnership approach, and that extends to rural communities and in particular Indigenous and First Nation communities. Manitoba has one of the highest populations of Indigenous people in the country and the youngest population of any province. And what that means is that there's a large population of young Indigenous people who are looking for opportunities, economic opportunities. And we want to be able to work in partnership with First Nation and work in collaboration with Indigenous people, work together with all Manitobans, Black Manitobans and Manitobans from all backgrounds, to ensure that they have the opportunities, regardless of what region they might live in the province. So we're very interested in having additional educational opportunities for folks who live in rural and northern Manitoba, partnering with some of these leaders in these groups to find ways to collaboratively have programs that are tailored for specific needs. And then also finding ways to make sure that not only are they available, but they're affordable, because we know that affordability is a key part of making sure that it is accessible. And so if we hope that we can fill in some of these gaps in the educational aspects and the advanced education and training aspects for young Manitobans, we hope that this will, give them more opportunities and encourage them to stay here, get educated here, work here, and make a life here in Manitoba.
Yeah, well, there's a few policies here and few plans that we'll be looking for, and just also because we try to motivate or encourage also young Black or any racialized and from diverse backgrounds also be involved. And the reluctance mostly is like, politics is not where things are getting done, or to see politics as like not an option, right? Where they look from far, it's not an option. They think it's a waste of time. And someone now has been there for quite a while now with responsibilities, with a portfolio, and also fairly young too, is what kind of not tips where, because the reluctance is there in terms of seeing that kind of barrier wanting to jump into, feel like it doesn't concern us, but at the same time, the seal, have you mentioned with affordability, another issue that politics is kind of serious. But so, and then we see also in terms of voting numbers where they're not participating as they should in terms of voting. So I don't know what kind of advice or tips you can have for, for those young Manitobans, Canadian in general, to really get involved in politics, because it's very important.
Yeah, getting involved in politics is clearly very important. For young Manitobans specifically, politics impacts your everyday life. If you're thinking, I'm under 18 and I can't even vote yet, well, if you go to a public school, that is provincially funded, so your political voice does matter. If you go to any of the universities or publicly funded universities or colleges here, your vote doesn't matter because there's provincial funding that goes into those institutions. And so I encourage you to think about in your own life, how does politics impact you? That's what happened to me just when these things hit me in my life, and that's what got me more involved. And so sometimes I know that when you're a young person, it doesn't seem real until it's right in your face. And so I would encourage you to look what you're going through every day and see how, if there's a political string involved there, get involved and see how you can advocate for yourselves, your peers, and your community to make sure that you're continually advancing and making sure that that stays better. But I'll add one more thing onto that piece, is that I think that now that I'm in this role, I think we do have an added responsibility in ensuring that what we're doing, we are being responsive to young people as well. Young people, from my experience, the ones that I talk to regularly, tell me that they want to have policies and laws and programming that is responsive to their needs. And so I think that all politicians in Manitoba and right across the province need to make sure that what we're doing, we're having with them in mind as well, so that we can do our planning and we can put forward offerings that is going to impact positively the lives of young people.
Yeah, thanks for that, Minister. So as to wrap up, is there any policies and programs or something that we should be watching for coming from your ministry particularly, or the government in general?
We've got a lot of exciting things going on. I will point to one significant bill that we're introducing now. And I point to it because, as I mentioned, being one of the first Black MLAs elected in 2019, now I sit around a cabinet table, which in my estimation is the most diverse and representative cabinet table, certainly in Manitoba's history. And I'd love to see someone point out one in anywhere in Canadian history. We're led by the country's first First Nations premier, in Premier Wab Kinew, and we're very proud of that. But we're proud that he is not just First Nations, but that he is a genuine and sincere premier that will lead this province. And one of the things that he's done and that we've done together is to introduce a bill that would make Louis Riel the honorary first premier of our province. And that's significant because it goes to highlighting the true history of Manitoba, and it goes to in educating all of us for the future, so that not only are we starting off our government in a good foot with respect to the history within our own province, helping us to understand ourselves as a people in Manitoba, but also paving the way for a better and brighter future as we understand how we can advance reconciliation and as how we can build a province that truly works for all of us of all different backgrounds in Manitoba.
Well, Minister, thank you very much for sitting down with me, and we'll be following closely all the proposals you put here, and hopefully it's the first of many conversations we'll be having to also keep you guys accountable and to make sure that your ministry and your government in general is also delivering for Manitobans, and hopefully you can come back to bless us with other conversations and other opportunities to engage with young Manitobans and the whole population broadly.
Well, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to future conversations that we can have. And once again, thank you for providing this space and this voice to highlight these important conversations.
Right. Thank you. Well, that's it for us, folks, and just stay tuned, and you follow us with another conversation with another politicians or someone who's out there serving the public. See you. Bye-bye.
Hey man, yo kakampe. Hey man, yo kakampe.